Yes, everybody, welcome back to Talking Wolves. Brand new match preview as Wolves host Fulham this weekend. Hoping to get back to winning ways after a disappointing defeat against Newcastle last weekend. Of course, giving my thoughts ahead of it, the latest team news. We'll have the opposition perspective as well. But as always, our channel partners over at Football Prizes have another Wolves prize up for grabs this week. It's a signed Mario Lemina shirt. So if you want to go and check that one out, if you go and visit the link at the top of the description, a signed and framed Mario Lemina shirt up for grabs with the deadline next Wednesday as well. But Wolves will be hoping to get back to winning ways against Fulham. Interesting game because Fulham are actually a lot closer to us in the table than you realise, really. If Fulham do beat us at Molineux, which they haven't done for a long time, but if they do get the win on Saturday, they'll actually go ahead of us in the league and Wolves will just be slipping down very, very slightly. A win, though, will keep Wolves very much in and amongst the race for a potential European spot. Of course, still lots of quality above us. Chelsea can certainly come back into it. You still got West Ham, Newcastle and Brighton all fighting for that final place as well. But I think the performance against Newcastle was extremely poor in terms of the quality of chances created. The lads looked very tired and fatigued. I felt Newcastle were fortunate with a couple of the goals, but Wolves ultimately needed this week's rest, and hopefully we're in a much better place for it come Saturday as well. Fulham starting to hit a little bit of form themselves. One player that will be very interesting to see what impact he has is Adama Traore, who's got a goal contribution in each of his last two games, an assist for the winner at Old Trafford, and a goal in the 3-0 win over Brighton for them recently. I don't think Raul Jimenez will play due to injury, but Wolves ultimately will come into this one now. Still, obviously, without Hwang Hee-chan. Matheus Cunha, you would assume it's still a little bit too soon for him as well. And of course, Gary O'Neill will have his pre-match press conference tomorrow, which is Friday lunchtime. So if there's any major updates during that press conference, of course, we'll put it on our socials, and I'll probably try and do a video tomorrow as well with any other updates, as well as some transfer news. So be sure to check that one out tomorrow evening. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I think Fulham are a good side. Wolves do have the quality to cause them problems, but my only concern with Wolves at present is the threat in front of goal again. Look, in terms of goal scoring, it's been one of our best goal scoring seasons for a long time, and Wolves have found a way to grab goals, but without Cunha and without Hwang, Wolves just seem to lack just that little bit in front of goal. I'm hoping Neto is back fully fit. Of course, him and Jose Sarr both came off early against Newcastle, both coming off at half-time as precautions. I would hope João Gomez is back fit as well, and that would leave Wolves in a much better place, a much stronger place altogether. Let's go on to my predicted lineup. I think it's very difficult to predict this one, to be honest, this week, player for player. So I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these positions or players change, to be completely honest. But I would assume with a back five, Aït-Nouri and Semedo keeping their places. I think Totti, Dawson and Kilman will keep their place again, unless Gary O'Neill's feeling quite ruthless and maybe bring Santi Bueno back in, who fully deserves a start, by the way. Midfield too, I think he'll try and reintroduce Lemina and Tommy Doyle, and then a front three of Neto if he's fit, Pablo Sarabia, and I think as well it will be Jean-Ric Bellegarde. Could easily go with the midfield three and bring Tommy Doyle in there, which I suggested last week as well, but that's the team I think it will be. But any big changes, I'll let you guys know as well. But I spoke to Jack as well from the Fulhamish podcast to get his thoughts ahead of this game. Interesting game. Wolves and Fulham very, very close to each other. So these were his thoughts ahead of the game. So then, guys, for the away perspective today, I'm delighted to be alongside Jack, once again, Fulham fan who contributes towards the Fulhamish podcast as well. Jack, how you keeping, mate?
Very well, mate. Very well. Thank you for welcoming me back on again. Obviously, it was a great result for us last time against you, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I know. It was a pretty hectic game, wasn't it, last time? A lot of controversy after that match with VAR. Yeah. Thankfully for Wolves, touch wood, it's calmed down a little bit recently, because around then we just had problem after problem with VAR, but we won't jump into that too much anyway, Jack. Fulham at the moment sat in 12th place in the Premier League, not a million miles behind Wolves now, to be fair, 3 points behind us, picking up a little bit of decent form. What have been your thoughts on Fulham's season so far as we enter towards the business stage now?
Yeah, it's been really good. I've been really happy with it, to be honest with you. we touched on it the last time I came on, there was very much a lot of uncertainty, very similar to Wolves in the summer.
Yeah.
Obviously, we lost Alexander Mitrovic and we almost lost Molineux and whatnot. And we were a little bit concerned, what's going to happen. A lot of fans, including myself, weren't particularly pleased with the recruitment, but we've ticked along nicely and we seem to be now we've got players back from the African Cup of Nations. We're, kind of coming from strength to strength. And, the expectation has drastically changed. The aim for Fulham was just to avoid the drop. We're not mathematically clear, but we'd have to go through some hell of a drop to go down at this point. But now, we're, as you mentioned, we're only a few points off of you. So, the top half is still a possibility of that if we get a positive result on Saturday. As well, I mean, Fulham as well. We'd love to finish above Chelsea again. That'd be fantastic for us. It's just we don't really get a lot over them, so that'd be quite nice to finish above them 2 years in a row. But overall, obviously with Carabao Cup semi-final as well, so it's been a pretty good year for Fulham.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wolves fans I think Fulham in general, their form recently has probably gone under the radar a little bit because not Wolves fans in general, but I think there's sort of general consensus that Wolves maybe are outsiders to possibly go for Europe. But I mean, if you guys beat us on Saturday, you go ahead of us in the table because we're very similar in terms of goal difference and so on as well. So it's been a very decent season. I think with the uncertainty, like you said, even Marco Silva's future was uncertain for a long time, wasn't it? But I know he's pretty vocal about the recruitment. Obviously, you guys signed a couple of players from us. Raul Jimenez, who has scored a couple of goals. I think he's injured at the moment, I believe. But Adama Traore is an interesting one, which I'd like to talk about because I hadn't really seen much of him. But the last 2 weeks, I think he got the assist for the winning goal against United, and he was on the score sheet against Brighton as well. How much of an impact has he had? Was he playing much of the first half of the season, and how impressed have you been with him over the last couple of weeks?
No, it's been a bit of a weird one for Adama Traore because he's been injured for basically the entire season. He started a few games at the start of the season, then got injured. Then he started a few or played a few in the middle off the bench, ironically around when we played you last. Then was injured again up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he's come off the bench against Villa, almost scored. Then came off the bench against United, created Alex Iwobi's winner, and then came off the bench and scored last week against Brighton. And it does feel like a new signing for Fulham just because he's not played for basically any of the season. And he's the kind of player, and you'll know as well, off the bench, last 10, 15 minutes, he's probably the last person you want to see coming off the bench against you. He's just, decision making sometimes can leave a lot to be desired, but he's direct, he's explosive, he's strong on the ball. And if you can keep him fit, or if we can keep him fit, he's a fantastic option for us to have off the bench. And there's been times this season where, games are cagey, games are tight, and you're looking at the bench for something different, and we've not had that because Adama Traore has been injured. And I think you saw, maybe not so much last week because we won 3-0, but especially that Manchester United game was the perfect example of what Adama Traore can offer you. And a game that's get tight and a game that's close, he can be a bit of a difference maker.
Yeah, I think we experienced Adama for a few years, and he was one of those players you loved him one moment, hated him the next moment. I think you'll experience that the more he plays as well. Such a talented, dribbler on the ball. But I think even both of those games the last couple of weeks for Fulham, it worked well for him. I think he's one of those players that wants to be playing. So I think in an ideal world, like you said, I think Wolves fans like this as well. If we can keep him and he's happy to sit on the bench and come on for 20 minutes, half an hour, then brilliant. But ultimately, as a football player, he's going to want to be starting games and, playing every minute. But I think against United away, when it's so close and they're pushing up and going for a winner, perfect for him. He'll run in behind. And even if he gets tackled or fouled, he'll get you 40, 50 yards up the pitch at times. He's such a great player to have. And Brighton as well, they like to play football. I've not seen the highlights, so I can't comment too much, but I'd assume they were playing high and, it suits him well as a player as well. But I do hope he cracks on. He was a good player for Wolves. And Jimenez is another one, Jack. I'd assume is he injured for this game? But round sort of Christmas, New Year, he hit a decent little bit of form, didn't he? Scoring a few goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar, in terms of strikers, you see it all the time. They go through a massive stage where they don't score and then one goes in the back of the net and then all of a sudden the floodgates kind of seem to open and they get a little bit of confidence. Scored one against Villa. It was only a consolation goal back in November. And then during that kind of December period, he really picked up, and we won a couple of games 5-0, and he was a real kind of crucial point to that in terms of a focal point up front. Then he got sent off at Newcastle. Then he came back from suspension at home to Arsenal, and he was the best player on the pitch, and he run them ragged, and he scored one and created another. And then unfortunately he was injured, and we've not seen him in a couple of months. But I mean, even if he was fit and back for this game, he wouldn't start, because Rodrigo Muniz has come on leaps and bounds in the last month, scored 5 and 5. So I mean, in terms of Raul Jimenez, he's been good for us, and I think that, assuming whatever happens with Rodrigo Muniz, if you've got Raul Jimenez who is confident, you've then got two options, and Raul Jimenez, when he's fit and when he's confident, is a fantastic footballer.
Yeah, I mean, we had that with Raul. Obviously, you would have known before his head injury, just a phenomenal footballer, and probably one of the best strikers we've ever had in my lifetime anyway. And the injury just knocked all confidence in him. I don't think, in terms of the regime at the club at the time's coaching staff, it didn't work out for him, and it didn't get off to the best of starts with Lopetegui. So ultimately he was let go, but still a talented player. And he had 1 or 2 performances last season where I was thinking, I think it was Spurs, Adama ironically scored the winner in that game. Raul Jimenez was fantastic, and I thought he could be back here. And then he just never really got back to that sort of form in a Wolves shirt. But Muniz, talk to me about him, because I mean, I don't know a huge amount about him, and I'd assume some of the watchers again are the same. But like I said, he's hit a bit of form. I think he was a nominee for Player of the Month as well. Talk to me about him. Where's he come from, and how's he been playing for you recently?
Well, I mean, if you'd have said about 6 weeks ago that Rodrigo Muniz is going to score 5 goals in 5 games and be nominated for Player of the Month, there were some shouts because of injuries. He might have got called up to the Brazil squad. Any Fulham fan would have called you an absolute lunatic, to be perfectly honest with you. So we signed him 2 seasons ago now from Brazil. He was Mitrovic's understudy in the Championship. Obviously didn't really feature too much. Mitrovic scored 43 goals that season. But when he came off the bench and when Mitrovic was suspended, he looked good. Then obviously we got promoted to the Premier League, and his chances were very, very limited as a result of that. He got loaned out to Middlesbrough last season, scored, I think, 1 goal all season, so really didn't kind of set the world alight for them. And then he scored a goal in the Carabao Cup against Ipswich and looked quite good for us in November. But then this kind of form has come completely out of nowhere, and it's very similar in terms of what I said about Jimenez. You score 1 and all of a sudden kind of the floodgates seem to open, and it's not just the goals that he's scoring in terms of being in the right place, putting the ball in the back of the net, but his actual overall play has been absolutely fantastic in terms of holding the ball up, being a real nuisance for defenders and bringing others into the game. If you look at some of the goals he scored and you look at the goal that he set up last week against Brighton, he had no right to win that ball, not once, but just twice. And he's really, really confident. I'm hoping it's more than just a bit of a purple patch. But his performances at the moment are, dare I say, that they're slightly Mitro-esque, which is, as a Fulham fan, that's great to see. And I'm very hopeful that, he can keep this form up until the end of the season.
Is there anyone else, Jack, that we need to be looking out for on Saturday? Obviously, Muniz is one. Adama may or may not start. He's obviously always going to be one, whether he starts or if he's on the bench. Is there anyone else that's sort of had a really solid season so far for you?
Anthony Robertson, fullback's been really, really good for us in terms of how we create. He's so crucial down that left-hand side, whether it's Iwobi or whether it's Willian that plays on the left. He's constantly overlapping and putting some good deliveries into the box. Defensively, he's improved a lot as well. So he's been really, really good. Obviously, we all know about João Palhinha. He's been suspended for the last 2 games, but chances are he will come straight back into the side. And then, the other one, as I kind of briefly mentioned there, Alex Iwobi has been a bit of a revelation for me, to be honest with you. When he signed on deadline day in August, Fulham fans were a little bit sceptical about him. But, he's a really good ball carrier, and whether he plays a midfielder out wide, he always puts in a really good performance for us. So we've got players who are, kind of peaking at the right time, and the general feeling around Fulham is just one that's really, really vibrant and really, really positive at the moment.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, Iwobi, I think he scored. Well, he definitely scored a goal in the reverse fixture, but he's got good form against Wolves. He always seems to find the back of the net against us. But I don't dislike him. When I watch him, he just seems to be a very, positive player, likes to bring the ball forward, quite talented on the ball. So I think obviously he's always going to be a player to watch. But ultimately, Jack, what's the aim now for the rest of the season? Are there any late push for Europe shouts amongst the Fulham fan base? Or are you guys pretty satisfied with where you are and, just aiming to top half finish and maybe finish above Chelsea is a big bonus for you guys?
Yeah, finish above Chelsea would be nice. Obviously, Europe would be absolutely unbelievable. I think we're a bit off that yet. But, positive result. If we win at Molineux on Saturday, then, I mean, who knows? We're in with a little bit of a shout. But I think we just want to – I just like – it's a positive time for Fulham at the moment. We're 15 points clear of the drop. It's just – I just want us to enjoy these last few months where it feels like there's not as much pressure. And I'd like to see Rodrigo Muniz continue this form. I'd like us to start maybe planning for next season. We've got a few players who have contracts expire, so I'd quite like us to maybe look at doing some stuff off the field as well. But in terms of on the field, top half would be lovely. But I think it's just about just enjoying it and not, having a bit of a drop off and just kind of sustaining this level of form and confidence.
Yeah, no, definitely understand that. And Jack, can I trouble you for a score prediction? What are you thinking?
I actually think it's going to be a really entertaining game of football. I think in terms of Wolves and Fulham, they're pretty similar, to be perfectly honest with you, in terms of in the summer, there were a lot of kind of outsiders kind of doubting them because of people they lost. In terms of Gary O'Neill, you've got a manager who I really, really like. He's a young manager who seems to get the best out of players, and they're both very, very similar, I think, to be honest with you. And I think it's going to be a really good game of football. I'm going to go 2-2 as a prediction just because I think it's going to be a really good game. But if I was to pick one team who I think is slightly more likely to win, I would go with Fulham just on the fact of how confident we are at the moment.
Yeah.
And obviously you're without Hwang and Matheus Cunha. So obviously that's a big bonus for Fulham. But I'll go with a draw, 2-2. But if Fulham win, I wouldn't be overly shocked. But that being said, we have a pretty poor record on Molineux. So
I did see a stat earlier on about the very quickly. If I see if it comes up now, if I quickly search, we've lost none of our last 7 Premier League home games against Fulham. Won 5, drawn 2. So we did. And you've never got a league double over us, which is very interesting.
Honestly, I don't think there's. From memory, I can't think of a time we've beaten you at Molineux. We've done it
44th league campaign in which the clubs have met and Fulham have never got a league double. That shocked me. That has really surprised me.
I remember we beat you in the FA Cup in a replay on penalties, and it's snowing.
Yeah, I was there.
I remember that. I remember obviously we drew 0-0 last season, and I remember a crazy 4-4 in the Championship.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
But we don't have the best of luck at Molineux. We don't have the best of
luck. 4-4 was crazy because we had a young laddie goal, Harry Burgoyne, because that was around the same time. I think we'd just beaten Liverpool in the FA Cup, so that must have been late Jan, early Feb, maybe that game. I remember you 3-1 up. We got it back to 4-3, and then you scored a late. I think it's Floyd Aite, maybe.
Floyd Aite. That's the Floyd Aite.
People watching this are thinking, "How on earth do you remember that?" But I mean, very close in terms of numbers. Matches won, drawn, lost. Goal difference between the two, like goals for and against, is so close. So I think someone would be very brave to pick a team to win this game. But I think Wolves at home, decent form. But, like you mentioned, we've got a couple of big players out. So be an interesting game, Jack. Appreciate you jumping on as always, mate. I'm sure we'll catch up again next season. I think both teams are more than safe at the moment. But where can people catch you and the Fulhamish pod if they'd like to?
So Fulhamish pod on Spotify and all of the usual podcasts. There's a preview to Wolves on there. If any Wolves fans want to go and listen to other Fulham fans. They're also on YouTube as well. Me and another guy called Jack looked back at the Brighton game and more importantly to Wolves fans, look forward to the Wolves game. So we're on there as well, and then just all the usual social media platforms as well.
So no problem, Jack. And apart from Saturday, mate, all the best for the rest of the season. I'll catch you soon.
Cheers, thanks, mate.
So big thanks to Jack. I'll make sure to leave a link to his socials and the Fulhamish pod in the description down below if you want to go and check them out. I think it's going to be a tough game, very tough game, but both teams very close in terms of quality. You would hope that Wolves' home form can get back to what it was. And then, of course, a big game next week as well against Coventry City in the FA Cup. So hopefully get back to form, get the atmosphere and the mood, because I think if we do drop points or lose this game, I think it's going to be a very negative mood, especially amongst the fan base, because the last couple of weeks have been far from convincing, to be honest. But get a win here, 3 more points in the league, and then full focus onto the FA Cup next week back at Molineux as well. But let me know your thoughts ahead of this game, guys. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back probably the next couple of days with a few more videos. One tomorrow with an update video, and then obviously the post-match reaction and the fans react on Sunday. And I'm thinking of maybe doing a one-off video as well on Sunday. I want to try and get more content out there for you guys. So any other suggestions of what you want to see on the channel or my opinions on certain things, do let me know. And yeah, I'll catch you guys very, very soon.